Hello all, I'm Sai and in today's video I'm bringing to you a very big book haul. In this book haul I have a total of 38 books, okay. I think this is the biggest book haul that I'm doing, that is out of the books that I bought from Lock the Box and Bookchore. I've got both physical books as well as e-books in this book haul, but most of the haul is of physical books. We'll see them first and then I'll move on to the e-books because I know that most of you guys are here to see the physical books, and for the e-books I'm just going to pop up the covers here. So without any further ado, let's get into the books right away. Just one small thing before getting into the books, I've not arranged them in a stack and I'm not going to show them one by one like I usually do in all of the other videos that I do. Instead, I've just inverted all the books in such a way that you can see the edges over here and all the books are scattered over 2 to 3 shelves here. I've also got a number of series to be shown in this video, so I'll just be picking the books out, talking about them, and then I'll be revealing them on the shelf. It just felt a bit different from the normal format in which I usually do book hauls. The first book in this book haul is actually the last book in an adult fantasy series, and it is The Burning God by R.F. Kwang, which is the last and final book inside the Poppy War series. I did not buy the first 2 books because this was available at a super cheap price for me. It is a very huge and thick paperback and it was just available for 179 rupees. I bought so many books in this book haul which are later parts in the series for which I don't have the previous books. I'll just tell that in advance itself because I know that I'm going to read all these series which I'm going to talk about in this book haul. So I just thought, why not buy the books when they are available at a cheaper price. I don't know much about the Poppy War. I've just heard really great things about it. I have a few friends on Bookstagram who have read the Poppy War and loved it so much. I was in this idea that I want to read Babel first because it's a standalone, and then I'll move on to the Poppy War series. Since I have the last book now with me, I think I will start with the Poppy War, read the entire series, and then move on to Babel. And I'm also pretty sure that when I buy the first 2 books inside the series, it's not going to match in the same size as this last book because you can see, right, it is not a normal size paperback, it is huge. And the cover art for this series is really beautiful. I'm very much excited to get the first 2 books and start reading the series. Let's just wait and see how it's going to go. The next one is an Indian fantasy standalone book and it is Star Daughter by Shveta Thakrar. I have not heard really positive things about this book, but the premise of the book just excites me a lot because in this book we follow our main character Sheetal, who's actually born to a human being and a star, and her mother is a star, but after a few days when she is born, her mother just goes back to the sky and joins her constellation. But on her 17th birthday, what happens to Sheetal is she starts to hear the stars calling her by name, and when she turns 17, accidentally she also ends up burning her father, and that injury caused by her to her father can only be cured by pure star blood. In order to help her father and also to discover the mysteries of her birth and her life, Sheetal is going to try and make her way to the stars. I've heard that this has a lot of references to Indian mythology, especially Hindu mythology, and I'm very interested to read it. Since it's also a standalone, there is no commitment to a series. I know that the author also has another book which was out last year. Even if the story or the plot is not that great, or even if the character is not great, if the setup, that is the Indian setup which includes Hinduism as a backdrop, is done well by the author, I'm sure that I'm going to enjoy this book. I'm definitely hoping to enjoy this. The next one is another last book in a fantasy duology and it is Redemptor by Jordan Ifvenko. This is the second book in the Ray Barrow series. I did not buy the first book in the series again because the second book, which is this, was available for just 99 rupees. The first book is also not that expensive, so I'll definitely buy it soon and read the entire duology. In this series, we are following our main character who's brought up by this mysterious woman whom she considers as a mother, and she's just addressed as the lady. And the main character whom we follow here is put into this race in order to become the council member of a prince, and she's also a person who's longing for a family because she has been grown up in isolation only with the parenting of this woman named the lady. But the twist in the story is that after she gets to be a member of the council for the prince, she's not given the opportunity to live with a family that she's been longing for all her life. Instead, she is forced to kill the prince in order to do some things for the lady. How she is going to perform all these acts and how she is going to choose her own path in life is the entire plot of the series. So I'm definitely sure that I'm going to buy the first book also and read the entire series. The next one is a short story collection and it is from India again. The book is The Black Magic Women by Moushumi Kandali, which is a collection of 10 short stories that are happening in the northeastern part of India, especially Assam. All these 10 short stories actually show us how the rest of India perceives the northeastern part of the country and especially its women. I'm not sure how to sum up this book without reading it, so I'm just going to read the blurb from the back for you. In the recent past, many writers have acquainted readers with the composite culture of Assam. Moushumi Kandali makes a similar attempt in The Black Magic Women, but with a stark difference. She brings her characters out of Assam and places them in the mainstream, capturing their struggle to retain their inherent Assamese-ness as they try to assimilate into the larger society. The stories make one pause, think and debate issues that range from racial discrimination, the fireflies outside of the frame, to sexual harassment, the hyenas and coach number 1, Kalindi, your black waters, to the existential and ideological dilemma induced by the state's complex socio-political scenario, the final leap of the salmon. The title story is revealing of how mainstream India perceives Assamese women as powered with the art of seduction and black magic, as a result of which they face social discrimination that can range from racial slurs to physical abuse. The writer ventures into a surrealistic mode using a generous sprinkle of fable, myth, and metaphors to deliver a powerful punch. With all the shades of emotion these 10 short stories from the Northeast evoke, the reader cannot remain a passive observer. It also has some blurbs written by some award-winning authors. This was also around just 65 or 70 rupees, so I definitely wanted to try it. I'm not sure whether this is translated in English or directly written in English. I'll look it up when I read it. Next, I have two books from another YA fantasy series, and they are Blood and Honey and Gods and Monsters by Shelby Mahurin, which are the second and third books inside the Serpent and Dove trilogy. I did not buy the first book alone because both of these books again were available at a very cheap price. Both of these cost 149 rupees each for me. I did not say the price of Star Daughter, which was 129 rupees. That's the main reason why this book haul is very huge, guys, okay? Because of the sale that happened in the mid of April and the end of March, I was able to buy a lot of great books at very, very cheap prices. So in this book, we basically follow a witch and a witch hunter who are married to each other. And because of this, there's a hate to love kind of relationship that is bubbling on between them. If I'm not wrong, the series also has a French kind of backdrop. I also know that this series is heavily romantic than fantastical in its tone. I've heard that the romance in the series is also really well done by the author. Let's just wait and see. Since it's young adult, I think it'll be leaning more into the romance compared to the magic or fantastical aspect of the series. I did not buy the first book because its price did not come down at all. It was around 499 rupees. But I'm sure that I'll be buying that one also and I'll be binging the series for sure. The next one is the first book inside an Indian YA fantasy series, and it is Samsara by Saksham Garg. I don't know how many books are going to be there in this series, but I'm definitely interested in reading this series because the plot or synopsis of this book sounds very interesting to me. It sounds a bit normal when it comes to comparing it with other Western fantasy series, but for India I think this is going to be a really good one because it sounds really promising to me. We follow a main character Aman here who lives in the modern day India, but what happens on a particular day is him and 10 other people get these blue tattoo kind of scars on their bodies, and these 10 people are selected to go in this mysterious journey in a valley inside the Himalayas. If they don't do it, the fate of the entire nation can be changed because they are the only 10 people who are selected to do it, and they are the only people who have the power to do it as well. It sounds a bit more in the younger end of YA, but I don't know how it is going to go because I don't know anything else about the book and I've not looked up any reviews also, and I will also not look for any reviews because I want to read this with a very open mind, so I have very high expectations for this one. Let's just wait and see. The next one is another YA fantasy duology, and it is also set up in medieval India. So it is again another Indian fantasy series to be sure, which is the Wrath of AMBAR series by Tanaz Bhathena. The first book inside the series is Hunted by the Sky, and the second one is Rising Like a Storm. The covers of both of these books just look so gorgeous. I usually don't like people on the covers of books. I'm not sure whether this is the photograph of a person or illustrations on both of these covers, but they just look so beautiful. Leaving the main character on the covers of the books, even the other small details that are done for the boundaries and edges of the book just look so awesome. The first book is in hardcover and the second one is in paperback because the first one cost the same when it came to the paperback as well as hardcover, and it was not that expensive also. It was around 350 rupees, so I bought it as hardcover. The second one was just around 150 rupees in paperback, so I just went forward and bought it. In this series, we follow our two main characters, Ghoul and Kavas. Ghoul is a girl who's born with a star-shaped birthmark, and people who have been born like this have been killed by the emperor inside this kingdom continuously, but Ghoul is saved after her parents have been murdered by this group of rebel women called the Sisters of the Lotus, and she's been trained in ancient magic and warcraft by them. And our other main character, Kavas, is a person who's trying to get inside the army of the king in order to save his ailing father, but there's a small instant during which they both meet in a bazaar and a romance builds up between them. How they are going to tackle this, at the same time safeguard themselves from whatever is going to happen to them, is the entire plot of this series. Again, it sounds like a romantic fantasy series, and I think it will be much more close in tone to the Ember Quartet by Shveta Thakrar because it just feels like that for me. So if you've read this series, please do let me know how it is. The next one is a historical book, and it talks about the history of a certain group of women inside the Rana dynasty in Nepal. Personally, I don't know anything about the people from Nepal and their history, and I also like knowing about the history of various places so much. And the book is Hidden Women by Greta Rana. I don't think I'll be able to summarize this book without reading it again, so I'm just going to read the synopsis from the back for you. One thing before going to that is that the price of this book is around 495 rupees in MRP, but I got it for under 50 rupees, which is again a great steal. Mere shadows in the life of Jung Bahadur Kunwar Rana, the founder of the Rana dynasty that ruled Nepal for 104 years. Hidden Women tells us a story of women about whom we know nothing or very little. Not much is written about these women in Jung Bahadur's life except that against his wishes they committed sati when he was cremated. Strong and independent, they enjoyed a prominent place in his life, and ironically the one he admired most tried to kill him. Narrated through the eyes of Jung Bahadur's wet nurse, the story is a sensitive depiction of women. Thoroughly researched, Greta Rana builds together a realistic picture of how women lived and thought, hoped and died in a restrictive feudal society of Nepal. This sounds super interesting to me, and the book is also a floppy paperback. I'm sure that I'm going to get to this pretty soon, and I've not heard about this book much from any source at all, so I definitely want to sink my teeth into this. The next one is a super popular memoir or autobiography by an author, and it is Diary of a Young Girl by Anne Frank. So many people over the past 2 to 3 years have continuously asked me whether I have read this book or not, and I was very ashamed to say that I have not read it at all. And even now, while I'm filming this video, I have not read this yet. But I'm sure I'll be getting to this soon because I finally have a physical copy of the book with me. This again cost me just around 40 to 50 rupees, and I especially wanted this edition because I don't like the normal edition which is always available out there. Everyone knows about this book, so I'm not going to talk much more about this. I just want to get to it pretty soon, and I want to share my thoughts about this book with you guys. I believe I will be inspired in some way or the other after I finish reading this book. The next one is yet another historical book, and it is The Last Queen by Chithra Bannerjee Diwakaruni. The main reason why I bought this book is because of the author. Okay, I know that Chithra Bannerjee Diwakaruni's writing is very popular, and she is super popular amongst people who read a lot of Indian books. I have not read The Palace of Illusions yet, but I think after finishing this one, I'll read all of her other books also if I end up liking this one. This is about the story of a queen who's long forgotten in our Indian history. I don't know anything about her, so I'm just going to read it from the synopsis. Daughter of the royal kennel keeper, the beautiful Jindan Kaur went on to become Maharaja Ranjit Singh's youngest and last queen, his favorite. She became regent when her son, Dalip, barely 6 years old, unexpectedly inherited the throne. Sharp-eyed, stubborn, passionate and dedicated to protecting her son's heritage, Jindan distrusted the British and fought hard to keep them from annexing Punjab. Defying tradition, she stepped out of the zenana, cast aside the veil and conducted state business in public. Addressing her Khalsa troops herself, she inspired her men in 2 great wars against the Firangs. Her power and influence were so formidable that the British, fearing an uprising, robbed the rebel queen of everything she had, including her son. She was imprisoned and exiled, but that did not crush her indomitable will. An exquisite love story of a king and a commoner, a cautionary tale about loyalty and betrayal, a powerful parable of the indestructible bond between mother and child, Chithra Bannerjee Diwakaruni's unforgettable novel brings alive one of the most fearless women of the 19th century, an inspiration for our times. I'm definitely sure that I'm going to learn a lot about this queen after reading this book. The next one is another biography, and it is Phenomenal Women, Kamala Harris by Chitanand Rajghatta. I wanted to buy this book especially because it was available at a very cheap price. It was just 79 rupees, and I'm definitely sure that I'm going to read it pretty soon. Clearly, it is just the biography of Kamala Harris, who's the first Vice President of the United States. I especially want to read this book because the first female to have climbed to such a great position in the US, which is a highly patriarchal country. It is not like in our country, right? We have a lot of great women who have been elected to be presidents and chief ministers of various states and the country as a whole. I'm saying that I want to read this book in specific because I clearly know that so many things are made difficult for women just because of their gender, and it is not right at all. Just by reading their stories itself, we can easily understand what are the kinds of struggles that women are going through that men are not even aware of. I strongly believe in equality, and I want to understand the kind of issues that women face that men clearly don't even know about. I know that she must have gone through a lot of struggles in order to climb to that higher position. I saw that the ratings of this book were not that great in Goodreads as well as other platforms, but just not to know about her life, I want to read this book. Let's just wait and see how it is going to go. The next one is another first book inside a fantasy duology, and it is Woven in Moonlight by Isabel Ibanez. I bought the first book only inside the series because again it was available at a very cheap price. It just cost me 195 rupees. Now this is a fantasy series that is based off of Bolivian mythology. I have not read anything or heard anything based on Bolivia ever before, so that's the main reason why I bought this book. Again, the plot of this series I don't think is an easy thing for me to explain even after reading the blurb, so I'm not going to read the blurb also to you guys. I just want to go in blind and enjoy the series as a whole because I read a lot of words in the blurb itself which I could not pronounce that easily. So I'm sure that I'll not be able to say it even in the least right way when I read it from the blurb, so I'm not going to do it to you guys. But based on the cover of the book, I think it's going to have a lot of animal companions or animals just helping the main character throughout the story, because just see the cover. It is very beautiful. It is very simplistic in its tone. At the same time, it has the main character and so many animals. The main character in this book, if I'm not wrong, has the ability to weave thread out of moonlight, and that is going to help her do all the things that she is going to do inside the series. Let's just wait and see how this is going to go. I think I will be enjoying it a lot. Next one is a graphic novel, and it is Jukebox by Nidhi Chanani, who's the author of this very popular other graphic novel called Pashmina. I have not read that graphic novel, but this was again available at a very cheap price. It was just 82 rupees and the quality of the graphic novel is top level, okay? In this graphic novel, we follow a main character whose dad is transported to some other place and disappears when a jukebox starts playing. And in order to save her father, she gets the help of her cousin and they travel across decades in the development of music in various different places across the world in different time periods. And before the music in the jukebox ends, they have to find her father. That's the actual premise of this graphic novel and it sounds a bit interesting to me. It's also quite long, over 200 pages. So I think I'll be reading this sometime when I want to read something very colorful and very easy to read. If you've read Pashmina or this one, please do let me know down in the comments how it is and what I can expect from it. The next one is again another first book inside a fantasy duology and it is The City We Became by N.K. Jemisin. The second book is also currently out. I think this was released in 2020, I'm not sure though. I've been wanting to read this book ever since it got released because I've heard really great things about N.K. Jemisin's writing as an author. She's also a 4-time Hugo Award winning author, okay? I have the last book inside the Broken Earth trilogy with me. I bought in 2021, but even now I have not bought the first 2 books inside the series. I'm sure I'll be getting to them, but I don't know when. I want to start with this one because it is a duology and I can also read it a bit quicker because I've heard that this happens more in a contemporary setting compared to the Broken Earth trilogy. This book actually deals with cities which actually have souls, and the city whom we deal with here is New York. I've heard that people who actually live in New York will have a lot of things that are relatable to them when it comes to this book, and others might not find it that much interesting. But I want to give this a go because from all the things that I've heard about N.K. Jemisin's writing, I think she'll be an author for me. She has also written a ton of other books before. Again, this was available at a very cheap price, just 169 rupees, so I definitely wanted to go forward and buy it. With my fingers crossed, I just hope that I like this author and her books are for me. The next one is an Indian novella that is translated from Malayalam and it is Do Not Go to the Jungle by Shihabuddin Poithum Kadavu, translated to English by J. Devika. It sounds more like a contemporary thriller as well as supernatural story from all the things that I've read from the synopsis of the book. I'm sure that I'll not be able to sum it up to you guys with justice if I don't read the book first, because I have read the synopsis and it has a lot of things going on for such a short book. A night watchman at a sawmill on the edge of a forest tries to forge a bond with a lone fox. A mysterious woman arrives on a night train in the town of Madampi, leaving in her wake lovers withering and paralyzed. The great communist leader AKG mistakenly boards the general compartment of the Malabar Express and is horrified by the scene that meets his eye. A lonely station master at a derelict railway station erects on the platform a stuffed doll in his own image. A migrant laborer reads out his PhD thesis to the camels he's herding in the Gulf. Isa is declared dead for COVID in Dubai and deported to India, where ghosts are unwelcome. Shihabuddin Poithum Kadavu's socio-horror writings, as he calls them, dissect the hair-raising manipulations of power. Moving seamlessly between the real and the surreal, these finely crafted stories shine a light on the anxieties of the disenfranchised, the would-be praise. Macabre as they are, Shihabuddin's prose is also replete with tender, heartwarming beauty. As in life, so in these tales, the light is never quite far from the dark and the unsavory. Making Shihabuddin Poithum Kadavu work accessible to the English reading public for the very first time, J. Devika's stellar translation of his story marks the arrival of a world-class writer in a new language. So if I'm not wrong, this also sounds like a collection of short stories. Let's just wait and see how it is going to go. The next one is a psychological thriller and it is The Maidens by Alex Michaelis. I'm sorry if I'm pronouncing the author's name wrong because I don't know how to pronounce it. Many of you guys have been asking me whether I've read The Silent Patient or not. I have not read that book yet, okay? I do like psychological thrillers, but I'm not that much into thrillers as a genre because it just feels a bit too anxious for me to read as a reader. Despite that, I bought this book because the hardcover was again available at a very cheap price. It just cost me around 215 rupees or 16 rupees. I've heard a lot of great things about this author's writing and how they move the thriller aspect of their books, so I'm super interested to give this a try, and if I end up liking this, I'll also try and read The Silent Patient. Next one is an adult fantasy trilogy and it is the Soldier Son trilogy by Robin Hobb. I have not read any of the Realm of the Elderlings series or books by Robin Hobb yet, and I want to start with this series because this is just 3 books and done. You can see that even for 3 books, all of them are very huge in size, so I'm sure this is going to take a bit of time for me to complete the series, but I hope to like this because I know that Robin Hobb is very popular for the way in which she writes her characters and the world as a whole. I know that all of her books are very slow moving, and just from reading the synopsis of this series itself, I get the sense that this is going to be a very slow burn and I'm going to have to spend a lot of time reading these books. I'm okay with it if the character development is done well. I'm always a huge fan when it comes to beautiful prose and great character development. Now this is called the Soldier Son trilogy because in this empire what happens is, as children are born for a couple, each and every child is given a proper designation or job of their own depending on how they are born for the family. For example, the first person who is born to the family has to take up a particular profession, the second must take a particular profession, and so on. It applies for both males as well as females. Just from seeing such small things in the description itself, I can see that this is going to have a lot of things going on and the world is also going to be super well fleshed out. I've not heard anything about the series at all, and again it was available for a very cheap price. I bought the entire series for under 550 or 600 rupees for such huge books, so I'm definitely going to try and read the series very soon. The next one is another Indian adult fantasy series, and it is The Burnt Empire Saga by Ashok Bankar. It has only 3 books and it is a retelling of the Mahabharata. The 3 books inside the series are Upon a Burning Throne, A Dark Queen Rises, and The Blind King's Wrath. Of these 3 books, only the final book, which is The Blind King's Wrath, cost me around 392 rupees. All the other 2 books just cost me 140 and 145 rupees each. For such a huge series, I think they are super cheap when it comes to the pricing, and I've heard really great things about the series from the people who have talked about it. Not many people talk about this series on BookTube or Bookstagram, but everyone who has talked about it has said only really great things about it. And one thing which just fascinates me a lot is that the author must have a lot of guts in order to retell the Mahabharata story in just 3 books, okay? We all know that the Mahabharata is a great epic. It has so many different great characters and it has a ton of great stories, and each and every character inside the Mahabharata is super great when it comes to their tone. I expect the same kind of writing by the author in this one also, and I've heard that the world building inside the series, at the same time the animals that he has taken out from the Indian mythology and dropped them into the series have also done really well by the author. I'm sure that this is going to change the landscape in fantasy for me when it comes to reading. Let's just wait and see how it is going to go. The next one is Tomb of Sand by Geetanjali Shree, which is the winner of the Booker Prize International for 2022. It is translated from Hindi into English. I've actually started reading this book and I'm just 200 and some pages into the 700 page long book, and I should say that it has a lot of things going on, okay? It is about this old woman who's in her late 80s and her husband has just died a few months back, because of which she is heavily depressed right now. But in order to get out of her depression, what she does is she crosses the border and goes into Pakistan illegally, and not just alone. She befriends this trans person and both of them cross the border together, and there are so many things that she experiences after she illegally crosses the border, because during the partition of India, she was one of those so many people who was affected by the partition, and she was in her early teens when she experienced the trauma of the partition, and all that childhood trauma is just coming back to her as PTSD in her 80s now. It is a very slow book, okay? Of the 200 pages that I've read, nothing much have happened, but trust me, the writing of the author and the translator is just epic, okay? There are so many things that are going on in each and every line. It is a book that explores a lot of themes continuously, okay? That's the reason why I'm not able to read it fast. I'm completely fine with it because I'm getting so much out of reading this book, and I'm fine if I read it over a period of 2 to 3 months also, because I just want to enjoy and relish each and every line of this book. I've highlighted a ton of stuff until these 200 pages itself, and I'm sure that once I finish reading this book, it is going to be filled with tabs. I think I'll also be reviewing this book once I finish reading it. Let's just wait and see how it's going to go. The next book is actually the Booker Prize winner for 2022, and it is The 7 Lives of MAALI ALMEIDA by Shehan Karunatilaka. There are a lot of things going on in this book also, and it is written by a Sri Lankan author. Since there are a ton of stuff going on, I'm again going to read the blurb only for you guys because I don't think I'll be able to do justice. Colombo, 1990. MAALI ALMEIDA, war photographer, gambler and closet gay, has woken up dead in what seems like a celestial visa office. His dismembered body is sinking in the Beira Lake and he has no idea who killed him. At a time when scores are settled by death squads, suicide bombers and hired goons, the list of suspects is depressingly long, as the ghouls and ghosts who cluster around him can attest. But even in the afterlife, time is running out for MAALI. He has 7 moons to try and contact the man and woman he loves most and lead them to a hidden cache of photos that will rock Sri Lanka. And it also says in the blurb that first published in hardcover as Chats with the Dead. But I like this title more because it just sounds even more authentic to me. And just see the cover of this book. It is super colorful and it has a lot of stuff going on again. I think I will be enjoying this book because it seems like a supernatural story that is actually going to be narrated by the ghost of the main character here. Since it's a Booker Prize winner, I'm sure that the language is going to be a bit more difficult for me to understand, so it will take a bit of time for me to read, but I'm super interested to get to it as soon as I can. The last two physical books in this book haul are a YA fantasy duology, and it is A Song of Raids and Ruins and A Psalm of Storms and Silence by Roseanne A. Brown. I finished reading the series only recently in April, and I should say that it is a really well written duology. I think it could have been stretched out into a trilogy because there were a lot more interesting things that were done by the author which were just glazed around instead of just going deep and digging through those stuff. Despite that, I think this is a really strongly written duology as a whole. Again, this was also available for a very cheap price. The first book was not that cheap, okay, it was around 300 rupees, but the second book just cost me 92 rupees. Finally, talking about the ebooks, I have a total of 10 ebooks, but it is not going to take a long time because all the 10 books just belong to two different series. The first series is the Winnowing Flame trilogy by Jen Williams, which is an adult fantasy trilogy. I actually wanted to buy the physical copies of this series, but all of them were very expensive, okay. Each and every book was between 700 and 1000 rupees in price, and I was not ready to pay that much for a series that I'm not sure whether I'll be enjoying or not. So I just went forward and bought the entire series as ebooks on Kindle. The entire series just cost me around 330 rupees, and I'm sure that I'm going to read it pretty soon. All three books inside the series are very huge, so I think it will take a lot of time for me to read them. I want to read the series especially because it has been super hyped by Elliot Brooks ever since she read it in 2021, and I've also noticed that the sales of the series has hyped up a lot ever since she started talking about it. She has compared it a lot with Mistborn, and I read the first Mistborn book alone, which is The Final Empire, and I enjoyed it a lot. And the second series is the entire Chronicles of Narnia by C.S. Lewis. All the 7 books together as a bind-up was just available for 30 rupees on Kindle, so I just went forward and bought it without even thinking because I've read only 2 or 3 of the books from the entire series and I want to binge it as a whole. So yeah, that's it for the ebooks. So yes guys, those are all the books that I've bought in the past 2 months, that is March and April, and it has been a great book buying month for me because I got such great deals for each and every one of the books that I've bought. I'm super pumped to read them all as quick as I can and enjoy them completely, so you can expect a lot of newer videos from me in the future. And if you've read any of these books, please do let me know down in the comments how they are and what I can expect from them and how you enjoyed them. And if you did enjoy watching today's video, don't forget to give it a thumbs up and also share it to your friends. And if you want to get more content from me, do subscribe to the channel. Thanks for watching and have a great rest of your day.